Welcome to this video for a little bit of extra practice on for loops. All right, so I'm going to do some examples, and you can follow along on the for loops in CMU worksheet. All right, and pay attention to the examples because these are the examples that are listed on the left side of the page. All right, so we're going to start off with the first example for x in range 1 comma 5. All right. And we're going to put this as a label, x comma 100 comma 50 times x comma size equals 20. All right. So when we run this, okay, what are we going to get? All right. So what we get here, all right, is this for loop is going to go through values of x starting at 1, going up to, but not including 5. So the values of x are going to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then that's it, right? Because we don't include 5. All right, so the first label is going to be 1, and it's going to be at 100 comma 50, 50 times 1, right? So then we have this label 1 at 150. All right, then the next time we're going to x is going to be 2, and it's going to be at 100 comma 50 times 2, which is 100. So we're going to have the label 2 at 100, 100. All right, then the next time we're going to have x is 3, and it's going to be at 100 comma 150, right? And then the last time through the loop, x is going to be 4, and it's going to be at 100 comma 200, right? And so we're using this for loop to go from 1 to 4. All right, so that's the first example. All right, what about the next one? What if we said, all right, then x is going to be in range 3 to 6. Right? So now that means what? Well, we're going to start at 3, then 4, then 5, but not including 6. So we're going to start at 3, then 4, then 5, but we're not going to include 6. All right? And then, of course, this is still at 100 comma 50 times whatever x happens to be. All right? What if we did from 0 to 6? All right. Well, that one should be pretty easy. We're going to start at 0. So 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, but not including 6. And so we start here. Now, this first one, 0, right? It's the label of 0, and then at 100 comma 50 times 0. So that's centered at 100 0, right? So it's kind of cut off there. But then you get 1 at 150, then you get 2 at 100 100, then you get 3 at 100 150, then you get 4 at 100 200, and then you get 5 at 100 250. All right, and then remember, you don't include 6. All right, so the next example. Now, what if we just write for x in range 6? So this is actually accomplishing the same thing as going from 0 to 6, right? So if I wanted to go from like 0 to 6, I would just say for x in range 6. Or I could say for x in range 0 comma 6, and those accomplish the same thing. All right. All right, so now let's do a new example. Okay, so now let's take a variable called sum, and let's set it equal to 0. All right, now we're going to do for x in range 0 comma 5. All right, and then our label is going to be x at 100 comma 50 times x, and then size 20. All right, but now what we're going to do is we're going to take the sum value, and we're going to increment it by the x value. So sum plus equals x. So we're going to add x onto the value of sum. All right, and then we're going to create a label that is going to be sum comma 200 comma 50 times x comma size equals 20. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the loop, right? So x is going to start at 0, then it's going to be 1, then it's going to be 2, then it's going to be 3, then it's going to be 4, then not including 5. So we're going to stop at 4. The label is going to be whatever x is at 100 comma 50 times x, right? So just like we did earlier. But now sum plus equals x, right? So now x is going to be 0, right? So we're going to add 0 onto sum. Then we're going to add 1 onto sum. Then we're going to add 2 onto sum. Then we're going to add 3, and then we're going to add 4, right? Then we're not going to include 5, right? So we're going to take 0 plus 0, then plus 1, then plus 2, so now we're at 3, then plus 4, so now we're at 7. And then we're going to make that label, right? The sum be a new label that's at 200 comma 50 times sum. So there you see 10, right? So we took, remember, we took 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, and then, of course, plus 4, right? All right. So we ended up with 10 as our sum, right? Um, and if you look at this, the or the value is at 200, right? Because we took 50 times x. All right. And the last value of x was 4, right? So 50 times 4. All right. So now, okay, we're going to do another example. Now we're going to take a new variable called uh, factorial. All right, so factorial equals 1. All right, and so now we're going to do for x in range 1 to 5. All right, and we're going to do factorial equals factorial times x. All right, and now we're going to get rid of this sum and this label. All right, and so now this label is not going to be x; it's going to be factorial comma 100 comma 50 times x size 20. All right, so now what's going to happen? So factorial starts at 1. All right, now for x in range, so 1 to 5, so we're going to start at 1. So we're going to do 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4, right? So factorial equals 1 times x. So 1 times 1 is 1. Then next time through the loop, factorial is going to be 1 times 2, right? So 2. Then you're going to do 2 times the next number is 3. So we're going to get 6. And then we're going to take 6 times the next number is 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. So now we're printing the factorial each time, remember, because it is in the body of the loop, right? And so the first time, right, we're going to print, we're going to get 1, then 2, then 6, then 24, right? So remember, 1 times 1 was 1, then 1 times 2 was 2, right? Then 2 times 3 is 6, and then 6 times 4 is 24, right? Now, if we did not have this label in there, right, if we backed it up, right, what's going to happen? Well, only the last occurrence, right, because it's only going to print once the loop has completed. All right. Now, let's do another one, which is talking about how the range is changed. All right. So I'm going to get rid of this. Right? And so now for x in range 1 to 5. So let's change this. Let's say, okay, 1 to 8, right? So remember that would be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, and 7, but not including 8. But now we can put a third argument here. We can say 1 comma 8 comma 2. And so now what is that going to do? Well, that is going to skip. It's going to do every other one, right? It's going to do every second. So if I start at 1, but I don't do 2, then I do 3, don't do 4, then I do 5, right? So it's basically doing every other value. All right, so now let's say I have label x comma 100 comma 50 times x comma size equals 20. So like we've done before. So now what's going to happen? We're going to print 1, 3, 5, 7, right? So notice 1 is going to be at 100 comma 50. 3 is going to be at 100 comma 150, right? Because 50 times 3 is 150. 5 is going to be at 100 250, and 7 is going to be at 100 350. All right. Now, what if I did something different and said, okay, now let's start at 7 and go to 0, right? But now let's count by -2. So now we're starting at 7 and we're counting down. So now we're going to say, okay, we'll start at 7, count down by 2. So 7, then 5, right? Then 3, then 1. But remember, up to but not including 0, right? So we're going to get, all right, well, it looks pretty much the same, right? So 7, right? 5, 3, then 1, right? But now let's say, okay, what if we went to 1, right? So now that would mean 7, 5, then 3, but then not including 1, right? So now you would not see the 1 show up here, right? Okay. Now, what if we said, okay, what about 7 comma 0? But now, what if we counted down by threes, right? Well, now you're going to get 7, then count down by 3, 4, then count down by 3, 1, right? And that's it because you go up 2 but don't include 0. All right. So that is some additional notes on for loops. So go ahead and try the extra practice on the right side of the page.